The territory of Heard Island and McDonald Islands are an Australian external territory and volcanic group of barren Antarctic islands, about two-thirds of the way from Madagascar to Antarctica. The group's overall size is 372 square kilometres in area and it has 101.9 kilometres of coastline. Discovered in the mid-19th century, they have been territories of Australia since 1947 and contain the only two active volcanoes in Australian territory. The summit of Mawson Peak is higher than any mountain on the Australian mainland. They lie on the Kerguelen Plateau in the Indian Ocean. The islands are among the most remote places on Earth. They are located approximately 4,099 kilometers southwest of Perth, 3,845 kilometers southwest of Cape Leeuwin, Australia, 4,200 kilometers southeast of South Africa, 3,830 kilometers southeast of Madagascar, 1,630 kilometers north of Antarctica, and 450 kilometers southeast of the Kerguelen Islands. The islands are currently uninhabited. Geography. Heard Island, by far the largest of the group, is a 368 square kilometer bleak and mountainous island located at 53.1000 degrees south, 73.51667 degrees east, minus 53.1000, 73.51667. Its mountains are covered by 41 glaciers and dominated by Mawson Peak, a 2,745-meter-high complex volcano which forms part of the Big Bend Massif. A July 2000 satellite image from the University of Hawaii's Institute of Geophysics and Planetology Thermal Alert Team, University of Hawaii, showed an active 2-kilometer-long lava flow trending southwest from the summit of Big Bend. The McDonald Islands are located 44 kilometers to the west of Heard Island at 53.0389 degrees south, 72.60111 degrees east, minus 53.03889, 72.60111. The islands are small and rocky. In 1980 they consisted of McDonald Island High, Flat Island High, and Mare Rock High. They totaled approximately 2.5 square kilometers in area, where McDonald Island was 1.13 square kilometers large. There is a small group of islets and rocks about 10 kilometers north of Heard Island, consisting of Shag Islet, Sail Rock, Morgan Island and Black Rock. They total about 1.1 square kilometers in area. Mawson Peak and McDonald Island are the only two active volcanoes in Australian territory. Mawson Peak is also one of the highest Australian mountains, surpassed only by Mount McClintock Range in the Antarctic territory. Mawson Peak has erupted several times in the last decade. The most recent eruption was filmed on the 2nd of February 2016. The volcano on McDonald Island, after being dormant for 75,000 years, became active in 1992 and has erupted several times since. Heard Island and the McDonald Islands have no ports or harbors. Ships must anchor offshore. The coastline is 101.9 kilometers, and a 12 nautical mile territorial sea and 200 nautical mile exclusive fishing zone are claimed. Climate. The islands have an Antarctic climate, tempered by the maritime setting. The weather is marked by low seasonal and daily temperature ranges, persistent and generally low cloud cover, frequent precipitation and strong winds. Snowfall occurs throughout the year. Monthly average temperatures at Atlas Cove range from 0.0 to 4.2 degrees Celsius, with an average daily range of 3.7 to 5.2 degrees Celsius in summer and minus 0.8 to 0.3 degrees Celsius in winter. The winds are predominantly westerly and persistently strong. At Atlas Cove, monthly average wind speeds range between around 26 to 33.5 kilometers per hour. Gusts in excess of 180 kilometers per hour have been recorded. Annual precipitation at sea level on Heard Island is in the order of 1,300 to 1,900 millimeters. Rain or snow falls on about 3 out of 4 days. Meteorological records at Heard Island are incomplete. Flora Constraints. The islands are part of the southern Indian Ocean Islands tundra ecoregion that includes several subantarctic islands. In this cold climate, plant life is mainly limited to grasses, lichens, and mosses. Low plant diversity reflects the island's isolation, small size, severe climate, the short, cool growing season, and the Heard Island substantial permanent ice cover. The main environmental determinants of vegetation on subantarctic islands are wind exposure, water availability, parent soil composition, salt spray exposure, nutrient availability, disturbance by trampling, and possibly altitude. At Heard Island, exposure to salt spray and the presence of breeding and molting seabirds and seals are particularly strong influences on vegetation composition and structure in coastal areas. History. Evidence from microfossil records indicates that ferns and woody plants were present on Heard Island during the Tertiary. Neither group of plants is present today, although potential Tertiary survivors include the vascular plant Pringley antiscorbutica and 6 moss species. Volcanic activity has altered the distribution and abundance of the vegetation. The vascular flora covers a range of environments and, although only 6 species are currently widespread, glacial retreat and the consequent connection of previously separate ice-free areas is providing opportunities for further distribution of vegetation into adjacent areas. Flowering plants and ferns. Low-growing herbaceous flowering plants and bryophytes are the major vegetation components. The vascular flora comprises the smallest number of species of any major subantarctic island group, reflecting its isolation, small ice-free area and severe climate. 12 vascular species are known from Heard Island, of which 5 have also been recorded on McDonald Island. None of the vascular species is endemic, although Pringley antiscorbutica, Colobanthiska gelenicis, and Poaca gelenicis occur only on subantarctic islands in the southern Indian Ocean. The plants are typically subantarctic, but with a higher abundance of the cushion-forming Azorella salago than other subantarctic islands. Heard Island is the largest subantarctic island with no confirmed human-introduced plants. Areas available for plant colonization on Heard Island are generally the result of retreating glaciers or new ice-free land created by lava flows. Today, substantial vegetation covers over 20 square kilometers of Heard Island, and is best developed on coastal areas at elevations below 250 meters. Mosses and liverworts. Bryophytes contribute substantially to the overall biodiversity of Heard Island, with 43 mosses and 19 liverworts being recorded, often occupying habitats unsuitable for vascular plants, such as cliff faces. Bryophytes are present in most of the major vegetation communities, including several soil and moss-inhabiting species. A 1980 survey of McDonald Island found lower diversity than that on Heard Island. 4 mosses and a number of algal species are recorded from there. Algae. At least 100 species of terrestrial algae algae are known from Heard Island, commonly in permanently moist and ephemeral habitats. Forests of the giant Antarctic kelp Dervalia Antarctica occur at a number of sites around Heard Island, and at least 17 other species of seaweed are known, with more to be added following the identification of recent collections. Low seaweed diversity is due to the island's isolation from other land masses, unsuitable beach habitat, constant abrasion by waves, tides and small stones, and the extension of glaciers into the sea in many areas. Vegetation communities. Heard Island has a range of terrestrial environments in which vegetation occurs. 7 general vegetation communities are currently recognized, although vegetation composition is considered more of a continuum than discrete units. Subantarctic vegetation is minimal and includes small types of shrubbery, including mosses and liverworts. Open cushion field vegetation is the most widespread and abundant vegetation type on Heard Island. It is characterized by Azorella selago cushions interspersed with bryophytes, small vascular species, and bare ground with 20 to 75% cover, and found mainly at altitudes between 30 to 70 meters ASL. Fellfield describes vegetation with abundant bare ground and less than 50% plant cover. Fellfield may occur as a result of harsh climatic and/or edaphic factors, or recent deglaciation which has exposed bare ground. Mossy Fellfield is a community with high species richness and consists of bryophytes and small Azorella selago cushions. It is found at altitudes between 30 to 150 meters in areas with intermediate exposure. Wet mixed herb field occurs on moist substrate, mostly on moraines and moist lee slopes at low altitude where the water table is at or close to the surface. Species richness is highest here of all the communities, with dominant species being Poa cookie, Azorella selaga, Pringlea antiscorbutica, Acinum magellanica, and Deschampsia antarctica. Coastal biotic vegetation is dominated by Poa cookie and Azorella selago, occurring mainly on coastal sites of moderate exposure and in areas subject to significant influence from seals and seabirds. Salt spray vegetation is dominated by the salt-tolerant moss Muelleria crassophilia and limited in extent, being found at low elevations on lavas in exposed coastal sites. Closed cushion field is found on moraines and sand at altitudes mostly below 60 meters, and is dominated almost entirely by Azorella selago cushions that often grow together to form continuous carpets which can be subject to burrowing by seabirds. Outlook. One of the most rapidly changing physical settings in the subantarctic has been produced on Heard Island by a combination of rapid glacial recession and climate warming. The consequent increase in habitat available for plant colonization, plus the coalescing of previously discrete ice-free areas, has led to marked changes in the vegetation of Heard Island in the last 20 years or so. Other species and vegetation communities found on subantarctic islands north of the Antarctic convergence, now absent from the Heard Island flora, may colonize the island if climate change produces more favorable conditions. Some plant species are spreading and modifying the structure and composition of communities, some of which are also increasing in distribution. It is likely that further changes will occur, and possibly at an accelerated rate. Changes in population numbers of seal and seabird species are also expected to affect the vegetation by changing nutrient availability and disturbance through trampling. One plant species on Heard Island, Poa annua, a cosmopolitan grass native to Europe, was possibly introduced by humans, though is more likely to have arrived naturally, probably by skuas from the Kerguelen Islands where it is widespread. It was initially recorded in 1987 in two recently deglaciated areas of Heard Island not previously exposed to human visitation, while being absent from known sites of past human habitation. Since 1987, Poa annua populations have increased in density and abundance within the original areas and have expanded beyond them. Expeditioner boot traffic during the Australian Antarctic program expedition in 1987 may be at least partly responsible for the spread, but it is probably mainly due to dispersal by wind and the movement of seabirds and seals around the island. The potential for introducing additional plant species by both natural and human-induced means is high. This is due to the combination of low species diversity and climatic amelioration. During the 2003-04 summer, a new plant species, Cutula plumosa, was recorded. Only one small specimen was found growing on a coastal river terrace that had experienced substantial development and expansion of vegetation over the past decade. The species has a circumantarctic distribution and occurs on many subantarctic islands. Fungi. 71 species of lichens have been recorded from Heard Island, and they are common on exposed rock, dominating the vegetation in some areas. As with plants, a 1980 survey of McDonald Island found lower diversity there, with just 8 lichen species and a number of non-lichenized fungi recorded. Fauna. The main indigenous animals are insects, along with large populations of ocean-going seabirds, seals and penguins. Mammals. Sealing at Heard Island came to an end in the late 19th century, after the seal populations there had either become locally extinct or reduced to levels too low to exploit economically. Since then the populations have generally increased and are protected. Seals breeding on Heard include the southern elephant seal, the Antarctic fur seal and the subantarctic fur seal. Leopard seals visit regularly in winter to haul out, though they do not breed on the islands. Crab-eater, Ross and Weddell seals are occasional visitors. Birds. Heard Island and the McDonald Islands are free from introduced predators and provide crucial breeding habitat in the middle of the vast Southern Ocean for a range of birds. The surrounding waters are important feeding areas for birds, and some scavenging species also derive sustenance from the cohabitants on the islands. The islands have been identified by BirdLife International as an important bird area because they support very large numbers of nesting seabirds. 19 species of birds have been recorded as breeding on Heard Island and the McDonald Islands. Although recent volcanic activity at the McDonald Islands in the last decade is likely to have reduced vegetated and unvegetated nesting areas, penguins are by far the most abundant birds on the islands, with 4 breeding species present, comprising king, gentoo, macaroni and eastern rockhopper penguins. The penguins mostly colonize the coastal tussock and grasslands of Heard Island, and have previously been recorded as occupying the flats and gullies on McDonald Island. Other seabirds recorded as breeding at Heard Island include 3 species of albatross, Wilson's storm petrels, kelp gulls, subantarctic skuas, Antarctic terns and the hood shag. Although not a true seabird, the Heard Island subspecies of the black-faced sheathbull also breeds on the island. Both the shag and the sheathbull are endemic to Heard Island. A further 28 seabird species are recorded as either non-breeding visitors or have been noted during at-sea surveys of the islands. All recorded breeding species, other than the Heard Island sheathbull, are listed marine species under the Australian Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Act and Antarctic tern. The recorded populations of some seabird species found in the reserve have shown marked change. The king penguin population is the best-studied seabird species on Heard Island and has shown a dramatic increase since first recorded in 1947-48, with the population doubling every 5 years or so for more than 50 years. A paper reviewing population data for the black-browed albatross between 1947 and 2001 suggested that the breeding population had increased to approximately 3 times that present in the late 1940s. Although a Convention for the Conservation of Antarctic Marine Living Resources (CCAMLR) working group was cautious about the interpretation of the increasing trend given the disparate nature of the data. As discussed in the paper, the discovery of a large, previously unknown colony of herd shags in 2001 at Cape Pillar raised the known breeding population from 200 pairs to over 1,000 pairs. On the other hand, the breeding population of southern giant petrels decreased by more than 50% between the early 1950s and the late 1980s. Terrestrial, freshwater and coastal invertebrates. Heard Island supports a relatively low number of terrestrial invertebrate species compared to other southern ocean islands. In parallel with the low species richness in the flora that is, the island's isolation and limited ice-free area, endemism is also generally low and the invertebrate fauna is exceptionally pristine with few, if any, human-induced introductions of alien species. 2 species, including the Thripapterothrips apteris and the mite Tyrophagus putrescentia, are thought to be recent, possibly natural, introductions. An exotic species of earthworm, Dendrotrilis rubidis, was also collected in 1929 from a dump near Atlas Cove, and has recently been collected from a variety of habitats including wallows, streams and lakes on Heard Island. The arthropods of Heard Island are comparatively well known, with 54 species of mite and tick, 1 spider and 8 springtails recorded. A study over summer at Atlas Cove in 1987-88 showed overall densities of up to 60,000 individual springtails per square meter in soil undistance. If Pringliantiscorbutica. Despite a few recent surveys, the non-arthropod invertebrate fauna of Heard Island remain poorly known. Beetles and flies dominate Heard Island's known insect fauna, which comprises up to 21 species of ectoparasite and up to 13 free-living species. Approximately half of the free-living insects are habitat-specific, while the remainder are generalists found in a variety of habitats, being associated with either supralittoral or intertidal zones. Poakuki and Pringliantiscorbutica stands, bryophytes, lichen-covered rocks, exposed rock faces of the underside of rocks. There is a pronounced seasonality to the insect fauna, with densities in winter months dropping to a small percentage of the summer maximum. Distinct differences in relative abundances of species between habitats has also been shown, including a negative relationship between altitude and body size for Heard Island weevils. The fauna of the freshwater pools, lakes, streams and mares found in the coastal areas of Heard Island are broadly similar to those on other subantarctic islands of the southern Indian Ocean. Many species reported from Heard Island are found elsewhere. Some sampling of freshwater fauna has been undertaken during recent expeditions, and records to date indicate that the freshwater fauna includes a species of protista, a gastrotrich, 2 species of tardigrade, at least 4 species of nematode, 26 species of rotifer, 6 species of annelid and 14 species of arthropod. As with the other shore biota, the marine macroinvertebrate fauna of Heard Island is similar in composition and local distribution to other subantarctic islands. Although relatively little is known about the Heard Island communities compared with the well-studied fauna of some other islands in the subantarctic region, such as Macquarie and Kerguelen, despite Heard Island's isolation, species richness is considered to be moderate, rather than depauperate, although the number of endemic species reported is low. The large macroalga D'Urvillea Antarctica supports a diverse array of invertebrate taxa and may play an important role in transporting some of this fauna to Heard Island. The rocky shores of Heard Island exhibit a clear demarcation between fauna of the lower kelp holdfast zone and the upper shore zone community, probably due to effects of desiccation, predation and freezing in the higher areas. The limpid Nutella kerguelensis is abundant in the lower part of the shore, being found on rock surfaces and on kelp holdfasts. Other common but less abundant species in this habitat include the Chiltern Hemiarthrum setulosum and the starfish Anasterias mawsoni, the amphipod Hyl sp. and the isopod Cassidinopsis sp. are closely associated with the kelp. Above the kelp holdfast zone, the Liternid Levelatrina hirdensis and the bivalve mollusk Chidria bicolor are found in well-sheltered situations, and another bivalve Gaimardea trapeziana has been recorded from immediately above the holdfast zone. Oligochaetes are also abundant in areas supporting porous and spongy layers of algal mat. Wetlands. Heard Island has a number of small wetland sites scattered around its coastal perimeter, including areas of wetland vegetation. Lagoons are lagoon complexes, rocky shores and sandy shores, including the Elephant Spit. Many of these wetland areas are separated by active glaciers. There are also several short glacier-fed streams and glacial pools. Some wetland areas have been recorded on McDonald Island, but, due to substantial volcanic activity since the last landing was made in 1980, the present extent is unknown. The HIMI wetland is listed on the Directory of Important Wetlands in Australia and, in a recent analysis of Commonwealth-managed wetlands, was ranked highest for nomination under the Convention on Wetlands of International Importance, especially as waterfowl habitat as an internationally important wetland. 6 wetland types have been identified from HIMI covering approximately 1,860 hectares. Coastal pool complex, inland pool complex, vegetated seeps mostly on recent glaciated areas, glacial lagoons, non-glacial lagoons, elephant, spit plus some coastal areas. On Heard Island, the majority of these types suites are found below 150 meters ASL. The wetland vegetation occurs in the wet mixed herb field and coastal biotic vegetation communities described above. The wetlands provide important breeding and feeding habitat for a number of Antarctic and subantarctic wetland animals. These include the southern elephant seal and macaroni, gentoos, king and southern rockhopper penguins, considered to be wetland species under the Ramsar Convention. Non-wetland vegetated parts of the islands also support penguin and other seabird colonies. History. Neither island cluster had recorded visitors until the mid-1850s. Peter Kemp, a British sailor, may have become the first person to have seen the island. On the 27th of November 1833, he spotted it from the brig Magnet during a voyage from the Kerguelen Islands to the Antarctic and was believed to have entered the island on his 1833 chart. An American sailor, Captain John Heard, on the ship Oriental, sighted Heard Island on the 25th of November 1853, en route from Boston to Melbourne. He reported the discovery 1 month later and had the island named after him. Captain William McDonald aboard the submarine discovered the nearby McDonald Islands 6 weeks later, on the 4th of January 1854. No landing took place on the islands until March 1855, when sealers from the Corinthian, led by Captain Erasmus Darwin Rogers, went ashore at a place called Oil Barrel Point. In the sailing period from 1855 to 1880, a number of American sealers spent a year or more on the island, living in appalling conditions in dark, smelly huts, also at Oil Barrel Point. At its peak, the community consisted of 200 people. By 1880, sealers had wiped out most of the seal population and then left the island. In all, the islands furnished more than 100,000 barrels of elephant seal oil during this period. A number of wrecks have occurred in the vicinity of the islands. There is also a discarded building left from John Hurd's sealing station, which is situated near Atlas Cove. The first recorded landing on McDonald Island was made by Australian scientists Graham Budd and Hugh Thielander on 12 February 1971, using a helicopter. The islands have been a territory of Australia since 1947, when they were transferred from the UK. The archipelago became a World Heritage Site in 1997. Several amateur radio operators have visited Hurd, often associated with scientific expeditions. The first activity there was in 1947 by Alan Campbell Drury. Amateur radio expeditions to the island took place in 1983 and January 1997. Another expedition began operation on March 23, 2016, organized by Caudal Expeditions. Administration and Economy. The United Kingdom formally established its claim to Hurd Island in 1910, marked by the raising of the Union flag and the erection of a beacon by Captain Evenson, master of the Mangora. Effective government, administration and control of Hurd Island and the McDonald Islands was transferred to the Australian government on 26 December 1947 at the commencement of the first Australian National Antarctic Research Expedition to Hurd Island, with a formal declaration that took place at Atlas Cove. The transfer was confirmed by an exchange of letters between the two governments on 19 December 1950. The islands are a territory of Australia administered from Hobart by the Australian Antarctic Division of the Australian Department of the Environment. They are populated by large numbers of seal and bird species. The islands are contained within a 65,000 square kilometre marine reserve and are primarily visited for research. There is no permanent human habitation. From 1947 until 1955 there were camps of visiting scientists on Hurd Island and in 1971 on McDonald Island. Later expeditions used a temporary base at Spit Bay in the east, such as in 1988, 1992-93 and 2004-05. With no population, there is no indigenous economic activity. The island's only natural resource is fish. The Australian government allows limited fishing in the surrounding waters. Despite the lack of population, the islands have been assigned the country code HM in ISO 3166-1 and therefore the Internet top-level domain. HM. The time zone of the islands is UTC+5.